Welcome to the latest episode of the State of Hoops podcast. This is your co-host, Todd Schlekeway, along with my fellow co-host, Nate Malchow. Nate, how you doing? It's March Madness in multiple ways for you today, isn't it?
A lot of March Madness going on. We got the girls' tournaments done this weekend, Schleck, and as with anything in South Dakota, there's always weather during tournament time. So I am still in Rapid City on this Sunday afternoon as we're battling some weather back on the east side of the state. But hopefully we can get all the AA teams home tomorrow. That's the plan when the road's clear. But great tournament. A's and B's for the girls were also a lot of fun to watch. And now we move on to the boys. And couldn't be more excited, Schleck, to have our guests for today. We have Nate Kaeding, Brian Norberg, and David Tukesbrey, and just fired up to talk some boys state tournament basketball with them.
Yeah, we're really excited, and we have an all-star roundtable panel here to preview all three classes of the state boys tournaments. And so just a little bit more backgrounds. We have Nate Kaeding, a former college coach at Southwest State, University of Sioux Falls, University of North Dakota. Nate is the Sanford Sports Academy basketball director. So he's very familiar with not only teams, but individual personnel. A lot of the talent that will be playing in all three classes this weekend play for his program. So he has a really unique knowledge of the players and the personnel on the floor. And then Nate also moonlights, I think we can call it moonlighting, Nate, as a TV analyst. I know you did some games for Midwest Sports Plus. And how many years will this be for you on the call for SDPB state tournaments, Nate?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that, Todd. Well, first off, glad to join you guys. And as I've heard some of the other guests mention, it's a cool, really cool idea that you guys had and following through on it, and anything to shine a light on all the tremendous basketball taking place in our area is awesome. But yeah, I was actually thinking about that last night. I believe it's year 4 for me on the call at the state tourneys.
Yeah, and you do a great job. I watched a lot of the Class A tournament on TV this past weekend with you on the call, and you do a great job making it come to life. So thank you so much, Nate, for joining us. We also have Brian Norberg. That's a household name in South Dakota for you basketball fans. Brian was the state AA boys winning coach for the Watertown Arrows in 2008. Obviously one of the all-time great players at Watertown and South Dakota State. Brian, how are you doing today?
Doing well. I echo Nate's sentiments there. Just honored to be on this State of Hoops podcast. And I got to start. I have a little bit of axe to grind with you and Chow both, because Coach McClemens, who has taken Watertown out to the state tournament, Pat and I would always have Saturday morning calls, and we'd call it the Mac Norby Show. Now our followers were our two wives in the car, so we didn't have quite the following you guys did. But we talked about a podcast. Well, guess what? You guys stole it. So you stole our idea, and now we have to watch you guys be successful in the State of Hoops, and it's been awesome. All kidding aside, you guys are doing a great job.
Thanks, Brian. And if I would have thought back in 1994 and 1995 that here we are, Brian and I played against each other back in high school when he was obviously great player at Watertown, and I was trying to set screens on him at Aberdeen Central. But little did we know, 2026 we're doing a preview here, so full circle on that.
Yeah.
So great to have you, Brian, and going back to Nate Kaeding, great to have you on as well.
Fun fact, Chow and I were on a staff together at South Dakota State for 1 year as well. We took some grad classes together and we're on staff at South Dakota State for 1 year.
Yep. Fun connection through basketball.
Yep.
And also has an analyst background. I failed to mention that when I introduced him. He does a lot of color commentary work for Arrow TV. For those of you who don't know, high school streaming in South Dakota has really taken off, obviously. I don't think there's a high school who has a better streaming service in the state than Watertown in terms of the caliber of the production. You guys do a great job with that, Brian. Of course, I have a little soft spot for the Arrows because Pat McClemens is married to my first cousin, and Jackson is a relative. So I'll be following the Arrows all weekend, as you will be here coming up.
Yeah, it should be fun. I take zero credit for that Arrow TV deal. Ryan Remmers and Sam Mooney and the crew, they do a phenomenal job. I don't know what Nate does other than gets to sit down and hop in the chair and just talk, but that's all I do. And boy, their production team is phenomenal. They do a great job.
And then David Tukesbrey. He is the sports director at Hub City Radio, and he hosts a show on Fox Sports Aberdeen called The Sports Hub. They do a great job, especially covering Class B and Class A basketball in South Dakota. Fox Sports Aberdeen will have extensive wall-to-wall coverage of the State B this coming weekend at the Barnett Center in Aberdeen, and David will be providing some insight on this podcast as well here when he's able to join us. But with that said, let's kind of dive in, Nate and Brian and Chow. Let's start with the AA. First of all, there's kind of a palpable buzz, I think, in the boys basketball community, knowing that both the AA and A will be in Rapid City. It's kind of a basketball fan's dream. It's going to be fun to see everyone out there. We may not be able to see all the games, but let's talk about AA, and I'm going to read kind of the bracket. Then we'll kind of do a deep dive, Nate and Brian, on the matchups. To start with, the first game of the day, we're going to have in the AA state tournament at the Ice Arena in the Monument. Sioux Falls Lincoln versus T-Area. That's the 1-8 matchup. And then the 4-5 is Harrisburg against Brian's Watertown Arrows. That's the 4-5 matchup. And then the night session quarterfinal, we have Sioux Falls Roosevelt as the 2 seed and Brandon Valley is the 7. And then we have Huron is the 3 versus O'Gorman, the 6 seed in the nightcaps. Before we dive into each individual matchup, Nate Kaeding, I'm going to start with you. Give us an overall storyline or theme that you're following going into the AA boys.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that probably on everybody's mind is obviously Sioux Falls Lincoln went completely unbeaten throughout the regular season. And I think the thing that is really interesting as the year went along, they had a multitude of games in the last month of their season that really like teams were pushing them from T to O'Gorman to Roosevelt, and you can go down the line, but in each and every situation they answered the call and found a way to win that particular game. And so can they string 3 more games together in an environment like that? And obviously they had a special year last year and came up a little bit short. So that'll be the thing that I think myself and probably a lot of others are wondering.
How about you, Brian? Give us an overall theme or storyline heading into the state AA boys tournament.
Yeah, it starts with Lincoln, and I agree completely with Nate as far as that gap seems to close throughout the year. And I think you've seen that with various teams, various classes, various seasons, where you have an ultra dominant team at the beginning of the year, and it's not that they're doing anything else differently necessarily. It just gets harder, and I think teams adjust. There gets to be that much more film out there. And you watch other teams get better to try to get their level. And I think, you could throw in Sioux Falls Jefferson, had them down the last possession, Nate, down the stretch as well, just looking back at their games, to your point. But they're the team to beat. There's no question about it. But we watched Huron improve here down the stretch. I think they're definitely playing their best basketball the last month of the year. You have Roosevelt, and you have all the talent that they have and what they can do and how close they played Lincoln. You could throw a lot of names in there, a lot of teams in there that have a really good shot. But for Sioux Falls Lincoln to win, they're going to have to play 3 really good games.
And I agree with both of you on the storyline of Lincoln and the unbeaten season. And I think when you get to the coaching piece of things, probably since December or January, people are seeing the success that Lincoln's having, and these coaches in the back of their heads are saying, what do I have to do to prepare to beat these guys at some point in the season? So you're probably seeing some more game plans that are adjusted. Even if you're playing some other teams, you're still working on some of those things that you have to do to beat the team that is seeded number 1. So agree that when you get to state, there's a lot of tape out there. There's a lot of teams that are prepping, and regardless of your record, you're going to have to put together three really good games, and you're going to have to be ready in each of those situations.
And I'll give you guys a storyline from my perspective. The Derek Roby story, he's in his last year of a storied career that spanned over 40 years, 6 state titles at O'Gorman. And when he made that announcement mid-season, they've kind of been on a magic carpet ride ever since. It seems like you can go back to how they were playing pre-Roby announcement and post-Roby announcement, and they've really, really played well. And we're going to get into their personnel here in a little bit. But I think that's going to be a fun story. How far can O'Gorman take this with Roby's last ride here coming up this weekend in Rapid City? Let's dive into the matchups then. And Nate Kaeding, I'll go back to you. So, we saw T give maybe the best game to Lincoln of anybody all year at Lincoln, early February, I believe. They're going to come in fairly confident. That 11 a.m. Mountain tip, if I was a coach and I was the number one seed, I don't know if I'd like that, Nate Kaeding, that early tip, but what should fans look for in that matchup?
Yeah, in the thing with the T area team, getting their sophomore Blake Lundeen, 6'8", healthy, about halfway through the year, just to provide them, a big, and he's not necessarily a true big, but he's got that length, and honestly, he can probably guard, or as good as anybody, try to make Sam DeGroat work for his points inside. And so you could potentially get away with trying to play him straight up and inside. And I think that really was an added benefit to the T area, certainly just interior depth and rim protection. But then it also just added, they're not a super deep team. So it just added a very high level player, in frankly, just another body. And so that's the thing that I think, and just the scoring ability, obviously, of Gavin Schott, averaging 23, 24 a game, whatever it ended up being at the end of the season. And then Griffin Wiebenga is one of the best juniors in the state as well. So I think they have the talent to score with Lincoln and be able to put points. And I think if you're going to beat Lincoln, you're going to need to, unless they have an off shooting night, which basically happened last year in the semifinals, where they couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. At that point, you're going to need to score some points and able to beat this team. And I think T area is definitely capable of doing so.
Any insight on that one, Brian?
No, I'd agree with everything is said there. What's interesting with T is just how they finished the season and then went out and beat a good Spearfish team on the road in the Sodak 16. They struggled 4 games previous and kind of to a point even where I was asking people, hey, are they sick? Are they injured? And all that. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what team shows up. Their guard play is their strength, and now adding some size back in. They have whenever you have guard play, and Nate can attest to this. Nate Malchow, not a guard, but can attest to it, is if the guard play that they have, if they put up with the pressure, if they can exploit the pressure a little bit, and kind of turn it into their kind of game. They already have the confidence. They played them well early, right? So they kind of have that confidence. They know they can play with them, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of team shows up there, T, but I do think they believe, and that rightfully so.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, Brian, with guard play at this point of the season, too. I think back to some of the teams that I coached that we were able to make a run with, and we had the guards were solid for 3 games, taking care of the ball, hitting shots, hitting free throws. It doesn't mean they have to go out and score 35 to 40, but just be able to be solid and set that tone. I think a perfect example of guard play was 2-3 years ago when Yankton won the state title out here in Rapid City, and just had tremendous guard play throughout that whole tournament. And I believe they won it as a 4 or 5 seed, but the guards stepped up, played well, took care of the ball. And for T, for Lincoln, for anybody, that's going to be a key this weekend.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching that one to see if T can replicate their performance from early in the year. So that's going to be one to watch right off the bat. Let's go to the second quarterfinal in AA, and I'm going to start with you on this, Brian. Harrisburg, Watertown. We saw Harrisburg come into the Watertown arena late February, and was a pretty close game. What did you see in that game, and what does Watertown maybe have to do a little different to have a different outcome this time around?
Yeah, looking back on that game, that was a big game, second to last game of the year for Watertown, maybe for Harrisburg as well. Had big seeding implications as far as, going from a 4 or 5 seed or a 3 or 4 seed maybe. But they that game was ugly early. Neither team played very well. And I would say even if you talk to Coach Langrock, he didn't feel like they played very well. They didn't shoot it very well that game. And then there's different points in the game, 3 different points that game. They got down by 7 to 8 points, and 2 of those times in the second half. And Coach Langrock, to his credit, they came out after each timeout that he called when Watertown made a run about put the game away. It felt like they answered. And they did it with bench play. They had an individual off the bench, and I should have pulled up his name, but they had an individual off the bench. I think number 21, number 22, David Doe came off, and I think he maybe had 17 plus points or more. And I don't think he had given them that all year, but he was the difference in that game because their perimeter play is really good and they're really skilled and they can really shoot it. But they kind of supplemented that game with some really good effective play down low. That was the difference in the game as David Doe off the bench.
How about you, Nate Kaeding? In terms of the personnel, the matchups in that game that you're familiar with, what should fans be watching in that one?
Yeah, and Brian touched on it a little bit. I think one of the things that makes the Harrisburg group a little unique is they kind of play Stellan Larson, who's not a big, going on to play at the college level at Dakota State, but they kind of play him as their big. But he can step out and shoot the basketball extremely well. So they essentially play 5 guards, but yet he's strong enough and tough enough to be able to defend a lot of interior people. Coach Langrock's been doing this a long time. And I've had a few games of theirs where they'll mix into some post doubles and some digs and try to do what they need to do with that necessary matchup. I think that's one of the reasons that, and then I also feel like they're a team that with that guard play in their motion offense, like they move the basketball extremely, like they don't necessarily have like a high level ball in hand guy. So that thing is just getting popped side to side. And with the shooting ability that they have with Stellan and Bennett Jensen, and Brian mentioned David Doe, who's honestly as athletic as any player in the state. And can really get downhill. I just think it's a tough guard for a lot of people that way. And certainly Brian knows Watertown a lot better than I do, but I know Jackson McClemens and Mac and the players that they have. It was no surprise to me to see them have the type of year that they did.
Yeah, they've been fun to watch. I got a chance, obviously, to call their games, and Carter Bisker is someone we need to call out for sure. Carter, he's averaged 18 points a game, and that's an individual last year played 7 quarters a night, right? He's playing 3 quarters of JV, and now he's to me an all-state caliber player. But between Carter and Jackson and Jack Mack, those 3 leading the scoring. Where Watertown's really been good is when they have good defensive energy, when they can get stops. They're not going to play to turn you over necessarily. They can get deflections, they can get stops. They get out in transition really well. And I know the other AA coaches, when they watch film, that jumps out of the screen right away is like, hey, Watertown's really good in transition. And so it will be, I would say, a very entertaining game as it was up in the arena here a couple weeks ago.
One thing that I'm looking at in this game too, and I had to coach through it, I had to play against it, Watertown's bringing the town, and they are going to show up at this tournament. It will be loud in the ice arena. That sound will amplify even more. Harrisburg will bring a good crowd. Historically, Watertown brings it, and I know that they have an excited community getting behind this team and getting out to Rapid City for the tournament.
It's a hot take right there. All the Harrisburg fans that are listening and tuning in there, Chow. Yeah, you just motivated them. Make that 5-hour drive west.
Well, and I hope Harrisburg brings a great crowd, and everybody does. Let's pack that thing up and get it going. So I just didn't have a lot of luck in front of that Watertown crowd a lot of the time. So that's why I had to bring that up.
Yeah, Nate Kaeding, I joked with Nate Malchow. We did a Sodak 16 preview, and Coach Langerock's going to send this podcast a Christmas card because I put them on upset alert against Yankton. And so now Coach McClemens is going to be mad because we just gave them more bulletin board material over at Harrisburg.
Well, I think about you and everybody else was looking at that Yankton Harrisburg game with how Yankton finished the year and the type of basketball that they were playing, and then they got Coach Haynes leading the charge too. That just seems to maximize about every ounce of everything out of his teams.
Well, let's go to the first quarterfinal of the evening session, we have number 2 Roosevelt and number 7 Brandon. Roosevelt's a team I've seen their varsity play 17 of the 20 games just because I have a son at the sub-varsity level now. Went to the first matchup in December. Roosevelt got them pretty good. Obviously a different time of year now. But Nate Kaeding, what are you looking for in that matchup?
Yeah, I think anytime you're playing a Brandon Valley team and a Coach Nelson team, I mean it's gonna be physical, and you're gonna have to put your hard hat on and make sure that you're rebounding the basketball. And as you well know, Todd, Roosevelt had an interesting year. They started off playing very good basketball, and then kind of hit a little bit of a lull. I ran into Mike Begeman here about a week or so ago, and we talked in depth that they kind of had a 3 or 4 game stretch there towards the end of the year where really trying to find themselves a little bit, and kind of dealt with some different stuff that maybe changed some rotations at times, and just frankly how they were performing overall, but seemed to maybe work themselves out of that and get to this. As we kind of mentioned with T area, I'm wondering a little bit of like what Roosevelt team's gonna show up. And then with Brandon Valley, can they score enough points to hang with Roosevelt? Because I know that they're going to try to defend them really hard. They're going to rebound the basketball, but can they get enough offense to knock off a team like Roosevelt?
How about you, Brian? You got your traditional ESD physicality versus the athleticism and kind of what I would say, Roosevelt, one thing they can really do, they have a lot of positionless players out there, both defensively and offensively. So when they're clicking, they can really be something. But how are you sizing that matchup up, Brian?
2 different styles in a lot of aspects, and how Coach Nelson, it's like going to the dentist office to go play against a team like his, and that's a compliment. It's a compliment. They execute so well, and it's been interesting to watch them, how much better they have gotten. You could make the case they are one of the most improved teams in the state tournament from the beginning of the year till now. They've really improved. And then you go with Roosevelt, and we talk about, a little bit dip in the road, in early to mid-February where they lost 3 in a row, but that was at Watertown, and then it was at Lincoln, and then they played a super talented Sioux Falls, Washington team. So they took 3 losses in a row. And then their next three wins were against Aberdeen, Pierre, and Central, all under 500 teams. So where do they sit right now as far as how good a basketball they're actually playing? So if we all know Mitch Begeman here on this call and know how intense Mitch tends to get, and he will have the boys ready to go. There's no question about it. So that's going to be another really good early round matchup that 2 contrasting styles going at it. So it'll be interesting to see what shakes out.
Yeah, and then the final game, quarterfinal game in the AA, we got Huron and O'Gorman. They played also late in the season, really close game up at the Huron Arena. I think Huron beat them by 4, but O'Gorman had the ball, the way I was told, under a minute, down 1 with the ball. And so it'll be interesting. What are we thinking on that one? I'll start with you first, Brian.
Yeah, to Nate's point earlier, Gorman's playing their best basketball. But is anyone else recognizing that these games are going to be phenomenal in the first round here? I mean, we got
some very good matchups.
To be honest, I didn't realize how good a games we're going to have here. This should be really interesting. O'Gorman is the most anti-O'Gorman team that I have watched in the last 25 years. And unfortunately, I had a front row seat too many years playing against O'Gorman basketball teams. But what I mean by that is they're guard oriented. They're athletic. They play a different way than what we've all been accustomed to with Sioux Falls O'Gorman. And a credit to Coach Roby. Look what he's done with the personnel he has this year. He's adjusted, and they're playing their best basketball. Fun to watch, and I think they're going in again with a lot of confidence against a Huron team that at the end of the year they had them beat. And so at the same time, Huron's size, man, they make that court small, and they can really control the game with their length, their size. And I'll be honest, if you can keep Huron off the offensive glass, or if you think you can, good luck. If you don't, I mean, they're just going to just hammer you on the offensive glass with their size, and Coach Buddenhagen's going to have them rolling. And so that's going to be another really interesting first round matchup.
How about you, Nate Kaeding? I know you did the Huron-Mitchell game on Midwest Sports Plus at the Pentagon, but probably a different team this time, but at this stage. But What do you see in that game?
Yeah, and I actually had him out at Brandon Valley as well towards the end of the year. So yeah, I had a chance to watch Huron a couple times, and then just had O'Gorman's Sodak 16 game as well. So as Brian alluded to, I mean, you're not going to find two different teams that could possibly be built differently, where you have an O'Gorman team that frankly, there again plays a lot of the game with five guards out on the court. You know, Alex Christian will play a little bit off the bench. Sometimes they'll start him, but you know, they are going to play. They're going to spread you out. They're going to work downhill. And then Huron is with the size on size. You know, obviously everyone knows Blake Elwine, but then you got 6'8" Davis Chase, and then you got 6'5" Anderson Porsche, and you got his freshman brother that's 6'5" and built as well. You know, shooting for them is key, as Brian mentioned. You know, they're spacing offensively at times, and that's why Blake's brother has been a big benefit to them, because he can really shoot the basketball, Miles Elwine. But yeah, if they're able to throw it up there and chase it and go get it, it could be a tough deal for O'Gorman. But if O'Gorman can rebound, I tell you what, being able to guard their lineup. And I know, you know, Huron and Coach Bud have they've adjusted even since the start of this year, some different matchup zones, you know, some heavy gap stuff to really try to protect the paint and use that length. But that's the thing with Sioux Falls O'Gorman. They just have so many guys that can get downhill. Mason Clark and Cece and Yellowbird. And then they got other guys, you know, Chase Hermanson that can really shoot the ball, and Matt Mead that can really shoot the ball. So it's like, you know, you got all these attackers, and then you got some shooting around them, and they're just playing their tail off right now. Like, whether that's because they want to leave Coach Roby on a good note, or whether, you know, I was fortunate enough to coach Mason this past summer, and Mason is a guy that it's like 110% all the time. So guys that are playing with him, that level is just immediately risen, right? And you're seeing that, I think, with this O'Gorman team. So it'll be, as Brian mentioned, man, like all these matchups, there's storylines everywhere. I think we're going to be treated to some good ball games. But this one especially, like, it's just going to be fun to watch, because the styles of both these teams and the personnel of both these teams just couldn't be different.
Well, think of where the roots started in this game right here. You had Roby at Aberdeen Central going against Budenhagen at Huron back in the early 90s in the old District 3 in girls basketball. Again, we fast forward 30 plus years and we get to this point. To me, this is the game to watch. Out of all the great matchups that Brian and Nate have talked about, you have two contrasting styles with size versus speed on a big 94-foot court. And to me, going into that game, if I had a telestrator, I would circle the lane and say, who's going to get the paint touches tonight, via post for Huron or via dribble penetration for O'Gorman. And I think that's really going to set the tone. I mean, who can win those trench touches, take control of the paint, and set the tone for the game. But it's going to be that's going to be a great game as a nightcap for the tournament.
And I agree with what was shared about Mason Clark. I think if you look at every team in this field, I'm not so sure there's a player more valuable, singular player in this tournament, more valuable to his team than Mason Clark. Every time I've seen him the last 2 years, he plays awesome. Every game I watch him, and he does so much for him. To Nate Kaeding's point, the tempo, and if you don't get back transition defensively against O'Gorman with Mason Clark and then kind of his sidekick Cece, they're going to score layups on you all night. And so Mason Clark, I think, one of the most valuable players to his team in this AA tournament. Let's talk real briefly about some other players to watch. There's some college level players, and Nate Kaeding, given your role at Sanford Sports Academy with basketball, who are some of the players that we didn't talk about that you also have coached that have next level players starting next year?
Yeah, in the AA, I mean, we talked Lincoln there briefly, obviously, but led by Sam DeGroot, and they're three with him and Sam Erickson, shooter on the wing, and Brody Schaefer, who's as good of a PG as there is around. I'm not sure if there's a team that can check all three of those boxes at the level that they do, and that's probably why they've had the season, and some great role guys around them. We mentioned all the studs from Huron. We talked Mason Clark, Roosevelt, very well-rounded, Memphis Bylander, a kid going on to play at Dakota Wesleyan, and then they got some good young talent as well. With Skogsberg and DeAndre Painter, kind of the super sub coming off the bench. Brian mentioned all the high level guys from Watertown as well, and Brandon Valley's a group that they're playing a bunch of young kids right now, but Lincoln McInerney is an important piece for them, lefty sophomore shooter, and then they just kind of get production from elsewhere. So I was trying to hit all the different teams. I think I got most of them.
Yeah, you did a great job. I knew you'd be the best equipped to answer that question, Nate. So before final question, are we making predictions or not? I'm fine either way. I know Nate Malchow is not going to touch predictions, but I'm hoping that Brian and Nate Kaeding will be willing to.
Brian, you want to go? You want to go first?
Well, Nate, you're not calling the AA, right? You're calling the A. Is that it?
I'm calling the A.
Otherwise, you would have to, you're like Jay Billis on game day. You can't make a prediction on the game that you're going to call, right? Yeah. Well, I will say this, Schlek. As a coach, we get second guessed all the time, and now we're, I guess, quote unquote media personalities, for lack of a better term, and so now we just make people mad by making picks. You're gonna make half the people happy, half the people upset, but I just know they're going to be fun. If we want to pick, we certainly can. I would take, if we just want to go down the line quickly, I'll do it quick. We got Lincoln against T. I'd take Lincoln. I got to go with the hometown arrows. Sorry, Coach Langrock and Coach Kleinjohn. But you got to understand that one. And then I say Roosevelt's talent and style of play just takes over in that game. And then, man, don't make me pick the Huron O'Gorman game. I'm going to go with Huron, just how they're playing right now, and their size takes over.
Yeah, Lincoln winning the first one. I'm going to apologize to Brian, but I'm going to actually have the Harrisburg Tigers. That's my Sioux Falls bias there, I guess, Brian. But no, Harrisburg, and then I think Roosevelt finds a way to get it done, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that the O'Gorman Knights find a way versus Huron. I said it, and then now I'm already feeling like I'm gonna be wrong, but we're gonna go there.
Nate, I didn't realize I had to stick up for my ESD schools here. I forgot the Sioux Falls bias on the call. So I got to go with the ESD teams.
Well, I appreciate you guys having fun with that, and we'll let our basketball community in South Dakota pick the rest of the bracket for us. How's that? That's a good transition. We're going to transition to several sponsor ads at this time. The first sponsor is the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame. Love South Dakota hoops? Discover the legacy at the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving our state's rich basketball history for generations to come. Visit their incredible exhibits at the Sanford, Pentagon, and Sioux Falls, and explore stories, milestones, and legends online at www.sdbbhof.com. From iconic players and coaches to unforgettable teams, this is South Dakota basketball.
And I also want to take a moment to thank the team at Insight. They're the folks who helped us with the visual assets to bring this podcast to life. And I can tell you, they don't just make things look good. They're going to dive in, ask the right questions, and come back with great ideas that actually work. Whether it's branding, campaigns, or creative strategy, Insight has a way of helping businesses stand out and connect with people in meaningful ways. And if you're looking for a partner to make an impact on your business, check them out at insightmarketingdesign.com.
All right. Well, we're going to transition and talk about the state Class A boys tournament, which is taking place also in Rapid City at the Monument, the Summit Arena. Nate Kaeding will be on the call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting with Craig Maddock. And we're going to bring in Tukes for this discussion. You've sat very patiently here so far, David.
Thanks, Tukes.
We're going to bring you in now that we're in your Class A and B wheelhouse. But let me read the matchups, and we'll have some overall conversation about the Class A field. First game of the day, Sioux Falls Christian, the number 1 seed, playing the local team, St. Thomas More, is the 8th seed. The second afternoon quarterfinal, we have a couple Northeast Conference foes matched up against each other. We got the Hamlin Chargers as the 4 seed against Groton area as the 5. First game of the night session on quarterfinal Thursday, we'll have West Central as the 2 seed going up against number 7 seeded Cheyenne Eagle Butte. And then the nightcap will be Clark Willow Lake as the 3 seed going up against the Stanley County Buffaloes. So, David, you first this time. Give us a theme or storyline you're following before we dive into the matchups for the Class A bracket.
First off, leave it to the radio guy to have the absolute worst video stuff. I've been at Hub City Radio for a decade, and as soon as you hit we're live, my computer just completely shut down. Just like, yep, yeah, we're not doing that. So maybe that's like the radio side kind of coming through. I don't know how that works out, but yeah, the video stuff also not great. But for me, it's going to be something completely off of the board. And that's controversy. I love controversy. And the fact that you have the number 1 seed that wasn't the number 1 seed in the SODAC 16 is the number 1 seed in the state tournament. And there's a lot of people like, hey, how can that be? Well, because the number 1 seed in terms of Sioux Falls Christian, they actually played a bunch of out-of-state games against Iowa squads. And as their season wrapped up in Iowa, somehow, some way, Sioux Falls Christian was able to leapfrog into that number 1 spot over West Central, which was kind of curious. And now that opens up a whole new can of worms of, hey, can we make this thing going forward where we don't change seed points after the SODAC 16? So I know that's not exactly a great answer, but it's something that I just think is wild. It's wildly entertaining to me, the fact that we went through the entire regionals, went through the entire SODAC 16, and it's like, oh, wait, they played? Oh, right. Yeah, let's go ahead and we got to change the whole thing up. And that, let's also toss this out there, is that changes a night game for the number 1 seed, previous number 1 seed. Now they're playing or an early afternoon game now to a night game. So it's kind of just weird. It's strange. It's kooky. And I like those sorts of things.
Yeah, I know that was a major talker on the state's sports radio shows. Your show, David, I know the Nate Brown show covered that extensively. And it is kind of interesting, especially in light of sometimes common sense doesn't prevail when we're looking at these things in South Dakota. West Central beat Sioux Falls Christian at Sioux Falls Christian.
Correct.
West Central is the only unbeaten team, but yet they slide to 2 after entering the postseason as the number 1. And, if you're looking at it, I actually think, and we'll go to you here in a second, Nate Kaeding, what it does when I look at this, it gives West Central easier first round matchup, but a much more difficult, potentially difficult second round matchup. And it kind of deprived the state, basketball fans like all of us, from seeing a Dave Hollenbeck versus St. Thomas More matchup in the state tournament in Rapid City. That's what I wanted to see. But Nate Kaeding, you're going to be on the call all weekend for this tournament. What stands out to you when you look at the bracket?
Yeah, first to David's point, interesting stuff. I think it had something to do with Western Christian down in Iowa continuing to win. But yeah, I don't understand that. I just got done calling the A girls, and I didn't understand how Mock Pialuta was undefeated, but still not the 1 seed in the tournament. But regardless, storyline. I guess I'm Captain Obvious with the link in, but do we have another rematch of that Sioux Falls Christian West Central game that we had in, I believe, was it late December? Because that was a fantastic ball game. 2 teams that I think have certainly separated themselves throughout the year. So do we get that?
How about you, Brian? I know there's several of these teams in Watertown's footprint. Any storylines stand out to you?
Well, I know that everyone that would look at this bracket, what the season West Central has had, what Coach Hollenbeck has done, has been really fun to watch. I happen to have a nephew, Boche Knight, that plays for the West Central Trojans, and been able to take in a few of their games. They're interested as far as just how great of a season they had. And people forget that Connor Mebius was out for 5 to 6 games where they had to, and during that stretch, they played some really good teams. And they have played, it's just the whole seeding deal is kind of crazy because it's not like West Central didn't play a great schedule. I mean, they played anybody and everybody on the A and in South Dakota for A. So they've beaten Clark, they beat Christian, and that game maybe was one of the best games, in all 3 classes, a regular season game all year, with that atmosphere and that game. And I think West Central would admit they played phenomenal. And so that'll be interesting if that's a matchup again. But I think West Central got better with Connor Mebius out and now plugging him back in. Obviously, he's a phenomenal player, but I think it created some opportunities for others to have to step up. And I think sometimes that happens to a team and actually benefits you in the long run come tournament time here. But don't sleep on, the Clark Willow Lake. I mean, extremely talented. Coach Nieschheim, are you kidding me? The job he's done at Clark and the young talent they have, they're talented enough to knock off West Central or Sioux Falls Christian. Coach Neuendorf with the Hamlin Chargers playing Groton. That's a really interesting first-round matchup, the 4-5 matchup. Groton, Groton, they've had great teams here now for the last 3 or 4 years. And it will be really interesting. So I rambled a bit, but I'm with you guys. I think everyone's looking at that Christian West Central matchup. But if any of them sleeps in the previous rounds, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, David, on your show, Groton's in your coverage area. You talk a lot about Groton. They've been a mainstay here at the State A tournament, I believe at least 3 years in a row. And Hamlin's another one of those teams. How are you thinking about that matchup or talking about it? What's the scoop on that one?
Checking my pockets for a quarter. You got a quarter, a penny, dime, nickel, coin flip? I mean, honestly, I think that's going to be a really, really good matchup. I mean, Jackson Wadsworth, I'm fired up to see him next year here for Northern State University. Of course, he's going to Northern State next year for Coach Wilbur. I just really like both of these teams. I think both of these teams are just that. I think you look at certain teams across the state, be it AA, B, or A, and you can say there's just like that one guy on that team that just elevates everybody else around him. And then you got two teams like a Hamlin and Groton that are just really well-rounded basketball teams. So I think this is kind of a coin flip matchup. I kind of tend to lean towards Hamlin just a little bit, but I think this is a coin flip matchup. I really do. I think Todd Neuendorf has done such a great job wherever he's gone, be it Roncalli, where he won a state championship, a handful of years ago, winning it all at Hamlin not that long ago as well. So I think this is a really, really close game, but something about Hamlin, I kind of tend to lean towards them just a little bit.
Nate Kaeding, what about that Sioux Falls Christian St. Thomas More game? You talked, Christians got Cooper Goodberry back, I believe. He played in their Sodak 16 game after missing 5 weeks. St. Thomas More, some people may have been surprised they beat Lennox, but they had a very solid year. Their schedule tested them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I agree, David. That Groton Hamlin game, that was the one that I have circled in the first round across this A tournament. I think that's going to be a fantastic game. Rematch, I think Groton actually beat Hamlin the first game of the season. Now that's a long, long time ago. But yeah, St. Thomas More, Sioux Falls Christian. St. Thomas More, really, you look at their schedule, they lost to a couple out-of-state Wyoming teams, and they didn't have a bad loss. They had no bad losses the entire year. Buzzy Gilton, talented kid, going on to play college basketball. I think he might be going junior college out to Gillette, I believe. And then they have a point guard, Ashton Paulson. That's another high-level collegiate player. So, yeah, not surprised to see them have the success. Yeah, you never know when you lose a coach like Coach Hollenbeck, how your players are going to react to that and just how things are going to continue on. But certainly they answered that call. Do I think that they're probably going to beat Sioux Falls? It's going to be a tough matchup. Sioux Falls Christian, and led by arguably the best player in the state, or one of the best players in the state, and Brant Wassner, just a do-it-all 6'5" guard. That's just spectacular. Makes himself and his teammates really, really good. And you could go down the line of guys that have played good minutes and important minutes for this Sioux Falls Christian team over the last couple of years, and that are still there. And they got some great young kids in Strandy and Dealman, and yeah, they're gonna be right there. But yeah, we'll see if STM can hang around. I'm not surprised that they had the year that they had, but they got a tall task here in round one.
And then one interesting thing to me, my dad coached forever in the Big Dakota Conference, Class A conference. We have Cheyenne, Eagle Butte, and Stanley County from that conference, from Region 6 in the state tournament field. Stanley County's first state tournament berth since 1997. So that is a 29-year hiatus, and they're back. That region, it's the first time since the Sodak 16 came system came that Region 6 has got 2 boys teams in. So that's an interesting lightning kind of struck. They both had really solid seasons. They got their points up high enough and they got favorable draws. So I was very excited to see both of those teams in. They're both going to have their work cut out for them, but Stanley County, I know, has a player by the name of Paxton Deal. They have Eddie Duffy. They have a 6'8" kid inside. So they've had a very fun season. And I think they'll give you, Nate Kaeding, some storylines to talk about. When you have a community in a school that hasn't been there for so long, that will add to your broadcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I know the Hall of Famer Lynn Frederick is a Stanley County guy, so I hear a lot about the Buffaloes as Coach Fred hangs out with me at the Pentagon. I'm sick of hearing about the No, should be fun to see them out there.
Dave Tukes, what do you got there?
Can you guys see this? I don't know if this is reading or not, but this is an N64 cartridge game with Keith Van Horn with the High Sox on the cover. NBA Jam 1999. This came out after they made the last time they were in the state tournament, 97. So little something for you. I can overnight that to you there, Nate Kaeding.
I think I don't think there's a more proud basketball fan than Schleck last Tuesday night on the Sodak when he found out that both Cheyenne Eagle Butte and Stanley County went in. I was getting texts right away, and you're watching all the games, but great for those communities. I mean, Stanley County has a very rich basketball history too, so that community is going to be fired up to head west.
Yeah, and before we kind of dive into our predictions, how about some other players we may have already touched on, Nate Kaeding or Brian or Tukes, or some players we haven't talked about yet that fans should keep an eye on this weekend?
I guess I could start, I suppose. I mean, I think for me is the young buck. How about Sully Felberg from Clark Willow Lake? I mean, he has been outstanding, and he's only a sophomore. I mean, every single night when I'm putting the sports together late at night or early in the morning, I'm like, okay, Felberg had an off night. He only went for 20 and 13. It's just like this guy's been filling up box scores left and right all season long. So I could give you a bunch of dudes, a lot of guys from Groton, same thing for Hamlin and some of these other guys. The cool kids going to Northern State, looking forward to that. There's actually a couple guys in this tournament that are going to be going to Northern State in the not too distant future, which is pretty cool. No pun intended. But I would say the Clark Willow Lake Sully Felberg, he has been outstanding all season long. So I'll be curious to see what he's got up his sleeve for the tournament.
Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to echo what Dave was saying. We just hadn't touched on the Felberg kid from Clark, and they're just down the road from Watertown. So I get to see him play in the summer periodically. And, that we mentioned that Connor Mebius from West Central, just a pit bull is the word I'd describe him out there. Super skilled. What he lacks in stature, he makes up for in every other aspect. So, yeah, I don't have as good a knowledge as the rest of you on the personnel. I know the Sioux Falls Christian's loaded. Just looking at the schedule, Clark Willow Lake has 2 losses, right? West Central and Sioux Falls Christian. That's it, and they played them both in good basketball games. So those are only 2 losses on their schedule as well.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I mean, Sully Felberg, and then they got a nice point guard, Chris Beavers, and then obviously the Bagman kid on the wing, and yeah, they got a talented crew for sure. Groton area, a bunch of guys that have been there. Ryder Johnson's a college level player. Keegan Tracy, you can go down the line. They got some good young players. Carson Zach, one of the best sophomores in the state as well. We mentioned Jackson Wadsworth. I love Jackson Wadsworth's game. I'm not sure how Jackson Wadsworth and Cammie Wadsworth are brother and sister, but that's I actually saw Travis at the tournament here a couple days ago. But Jackson, such a high IQ and shoots the snot out of the basketball. They also have another Stevenson, Buden Stevenson, who's having a good year for them. And then, yeah, David mentioned West Central, Will Cool, 6'9", athletic, had a terrible summer coach this past year, and me. And then, yeah, Connor's special. I've when I first got started to do this rather than college coaching, I started working him out when he was whatever year he was, 7th grader maybe. And I've gotten to know him and his family really well, and yeah, a tremendous kid and a pit bull, super skilled. Like, it's ridiculous the skill level that the kid has. So he's always fun to watch. Both him and Will are fun to watch because you can guarantee yourself that you're going to see a couple lobs thrown.
I like it.
Can we throw in there quickly the coaching difference makers in these tournaments? It's going to be AA and A. You have Travis Wadsworth on the bench for Hamlin, and you have Jay Elwine as an assistant on the bench for Huron. So if they win, we won't give them any credit, but if they lose, we'll definitely put the blame on both those two as dads on the benches.
It's always the assistant's fault, right? Always the assistant's fault.
Well, we struggled from the free throw line. That assistant coach was the free throw coach all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up some of the coaches, Brian, and the assistant coaches. Jay Elwine's a friend of the podcast. I'm sure he's going to listen to it. So we'll keep this PG for now, and then between sessions at the DoubleTree next weekend, we can have the R-rated conversation with Jay.
Yeah, we can't let Jay off the hook too easily. That's for sure.
Well, let's do a quick lightning round. Just pick the quarterfinals like we did for AA. And Nate Kaeding, I'll give you a pass if you want, because I do know you're on the call, and I get that with Craig Maddock. But Tukes, I want to go to you and Brian for this. Let's have you pick the quarterfinal round of Class A. You first, David.
Okay, I'll go Sioux Falls Christian over St. Thomas More. Like I said, coin flip with Hamlin over Groton, but part of me is just going with Hamlin there. West Central has been dominant all season long. I think that's as easy, in quotation marks, as you can get. I still think it's going to be a competitive basketball game. And then give me Clarkwell Lake in the night session there as well. So give me some Cyclone action.
I will go chalk as well, with Christian winning, and then that Christian Hamlin game. They have some history. Was it 2 years ago that
Yes.
Hamlin knocked them off out there? And Coach Neuendorf is going to have a Hamlin ready to go. They're going to take care of Groton early, and then they're going to match up in a close semifinal game. And then you got West Central and Clarkwell Lake matching up in the semis as well, and that's going to be an absolute battle. But I think you see Christian Central matching up in the finals, and I'm not going to pick that one. I'm going to chicken out.
Thank you guys for sharing that. And again, we invite all the basketball community in the state to let us know who's going to win the State A tournament. We want to hear your predictions. We're going to transition to a few more sponsor ads. Charles Schwab, looking for trusted financial guidance close to home? Visit Charles Schwab's Sioux Falls, South Dakota branch, your local investment firm. Led by Lonnie Struckman and Zach Hansen, financial consultants with over 25 years of combined experience, their team is here to help you reach your financial goals. Whether you're planning, investing, or just have questions, Lonnie, Zach, and their team put clients first every time. Call 605-231-4844 or search Schwab Sioux Falls at schwab.com to book your appointment today. Charles Schwab, own your tomorrow.
Looking for the ultimate basketball experience in the Black Hills? Look no further than Park Bench Athletics, your host for premier youth tournaments all winter long. Join Park Bench Apparel for epic events going on through April, with over 100 teams from South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Nebraska, and Colorado at each tournament. There is the perfect competition for any level. While you're there, check out Mount Rushmore in the Black Hills or hang out at Watiki Indoor Water Park when your team is not playing. Sign up today at parkbenchapparel.com or find on Tourney Machine and let the games begin.
And Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors. For over 30 years, Pat and Pam Tiefenthaler of Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors have been trusted names in and around the Sioux Falls community. Building relationships that last, they're humbled and honored to serve buyers and sellers with care and expertise. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or navigating a move because life happens, Pat and Pam will walk beside you, guiding you every step of the way. Call Pat or Pam at Tiefenthaler Homes with Hague Realtors today, your trusted partners in Sioux Falls. Visit tiefteam.hague.com or call 605-321-0550. All right, now it's time to talk about the state Class B boys basketball tournament in Aberdeen at the Barnett Center in Wax Arena. And before we dive in, David, you and your team at Fox Sports just provides wall-to-wall coverage of this event. Can you talk a little bit about what this event means to Aberdeen and the northeast part of South Dakota?
Yeah, Fox Sports Aberdeen is going to be calling all 12 games. So I'm going to start lubricating my vocal cords right now so we can just make it through. Definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, this is big time. You know, this is the Super Bowl, I think, for Aberdeen every single year. I think so many people get fired up to come out to Aberdeen and have just fellowship and watch great basketball, and all of these small towns shut down for 3 days. They're like, all right, we're going out to Aberdeen, and we'll see you on Sunday or Monday or something like that. It's a huge economic boom that Aberdeen gets, I think, for this huge 3-day event. And it's interesting because this is like that time of the year where we got to start talking about moving the B out of Aberdeen. Like, I haven't heard that a whole lot this year. Maybe that's just me, and my algorithm on X has been a little bit strange, a little bit kooky. I don't know. But like every year, like mid-November, start of March, it's just like, okay, we got to start talking about moving the B out of Aberdeen. We got to move to Sioux Falls. And, if that's you, okay, fine, whatever. But I haven't heard that a lot this year, which is kind of interesting. But no, it's going to be a great tournament. It always is. I take that back. Last year's was kind of boring, if I'm being honest with you. I thought Castlewood was far and away the best team there, and they proved that. And Coach Rosh got that elusive first championship, and congratulations to him and Castlewood. They were the team to beat last year, no question. They had a hard time getting out of their region, as DeSmet probably gave them their best punch in the region before the SODAC, and then, of course, in the state tournaments. For me, this year, I look at the whole field. I'm like, okay, that team can win it all. That team might win it all. I'll see this team maybe on Saturday night. I have no idea. I have no idea who is going to win the Class B state tournament on Saturday night at 6:45. But I will tell you that we will have the broadcast on Fox Sports Aberdeen, 1420 and 98.5. Shameless plug. But yes, I am looking forward to it. It'll be great. Crowds are going to be great. And bring it on. Let's go.
Awesome. And I'll run through the quarterfinal matchups for the State B. We got number 1 seed Viborg Hurley against number 8 seed Lyman. Shane Warwick versus Cooper Garnos. That one is the one I'm circling. Aberdeen Christian 4 seed Castlewood 5. So you have the local school versus last year's defending state champ there. Freeman 2 seed Sully Butte 7. DeSmet 3 seed Wall 6. Nate Kaeding, give us a storyline or theme that you think of when you see this bracket.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really wide open, but Castlewood is really good. So I guess can they string some wins together and repeat as champions? But I think this could be one where, we've seen it at the B level on the girls over these last few years with like multiple 8 seeds winning championships in Centerville and Bennett County, and even this year was pretty wide open, and Ethan won on the girls. I feel like this boys is similar to that with Viborg Hurley, and Freeman's a heck of a team, and DeSmet's really good. I mean, Castlewood. So yeah, as David said, I think it's wide open. But I guess if I had to pick one storyline, it'd be, can Castlewood find a way to get it done for a second year in a row?
Brian, how about you? Theme or storyline for State B?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Limited knowledge of the 3 classes. This would be my least knowledge I have on any of them. I do know the follow-up performance here thus far with Coach Roush, and I think everybody that knows Coach Roush, what he did last year and how cool that was to see him host the trophy. Mm-hmm. What he's done here in year 2, not year 2 coaching wise, but just the follow-up year with Castlewood has been really impressive. It looks like to me, DeSmet, half the roster is Wilkinson's, so that can't be a bad thing, right? I mean, with all the athletes that Wilkinson's put out there, I'd say that's a good thing. And you got Coach Warwick there with Viborg Hurley, and I kind of have a soft spot for Walker. I got to know Walker here pretty well over the years, and always kind of rooting him on as well. So I think I'll take David's word for it that this is a pretty wide open tourney.
Yeah. And so, David, I'll go back to you. Tell us some things about Aberdeen Christian. They've been at the State B now on and off, and they've developed their program to the point where I think they expect to get there most years, and they've done that. What should our viewers and listeners know about Aberdeen Christian?
I think they're a really well-balanced team. We talked about that with Groton on the A side of things. Is they've got multiple guys that on any given night can fill up a box score. And to me, they are a very, very dangerous team. And kind of like Groton v. Hamlin, that 4 versus 5 matchup is a coin flip. I really think that's going to be a fun matchup with Castlewood. But yeah, I kind of joked with Coach Rohrbach on the Sports Hub, I think it was 2 weeks ago, something like that they should change their name from the Knights to the Jets. Like, there is always a Jet or multiple Jets on that team, be it a last name or a first name for somebody. So they are a really well-balanced team. They had to really sweat one out against Warner in the regional to get into the SODAC 16, but they're an offense that on any given night I think can reach 70, and I think it's going to be tough for them against Castlewood because they kind of want to really bring the defense a little bit harder, I think, than maybe some teams. I mean, this will be my 10th year covering the B in Aberdeen, and there have been teams that I've covered where it's a struggle to reach 50 or a struggle to reach 40. And then there's teams that they're reaching 80, like no problem. Like when Joe Seiler was with White River, it's just like, give that dude the ball, let him go. And I think this is going to be one of those games in Castlewood and Aberdeen Christian. Maybe I'm wrong, but down to the fourth quarter, last couple minutes, two really good coaches, one a state champion winner and one that would like to become one here. He wasn't the head coach at the time, but David Rohrbach was the head coach in the 2020 season. And I'm not so sure if COVID doesn't come in and cancel everything, I'm not so sure they win the whole thing back in 2020. So Aberdeen Christian, they've got a great culture. You know, for years, it was all about Roncalli here in town. Now, granted, different levels of basketball, different classes, but I think Aberdeen Christian has kind of cemented themselves in that conversation for really good boys basketball here in town.
And Nate Kaeding, the 2 night games in the State B, any insight into Freeman, Sully Buttes, DeSmit, Wall? Brian touched on DeSmit. I had a chance to call one of their games on Midwest Sports Plus at the Pentagon against Sioux Valley, and they are huge. They have Wilkinsons, and their best player, though, is a player by the name of Noah Luthmers, who's really a good player, a guard. But Grant Wilkinson's going to South Dakota State to play football. DeSmit is huge for any class, but any insight on the bottom bracket there, Nate?
Yeah, I know some of the players. Yeah, as you mentioned, Grant Wilkinson, I mean, each and every night he's, just nobody is going to be able to match up with that size. And the reason why they're huge, Todd, is what Brian said. Half the roster is Wilkinsons, and there's no such thing as a small or short Wilkinson. So that's why they're huge. But Noah Luthmers is a very good point guard. They have that, that guard big tandem between those two is certainly formidable for sure. I was listening to one of your guys' pods here maybe a couple weeks ago. Thielen Kierstad at Wall is having just a spectacular year statistically. And he leads them with what they have going on. But that DeSmet team is good. They're Freeman. David Walter is a heck of a player at Freeman. They've had a good year, only 2 losses with them. Sully Buttes, they're led by Wesley Whitler. He's kind of similar to Thielen Kierstead, that you look at a box score and about every night he's going for 30 plus and leading them. Like those two are 2 guards that can really score. Really scored the basketball. I've watched bits and pieces of DeSmet. I haven't watched full games with a ton of those other ones. I just know box scores and stats and how good some of those individual players are.
And to kind of buttress your point here, I think that's really, really cool how you got a guy like Wesley Whitler and also Wilkinson, and both these guys are so good in basketball, and they're going to college to play football. Like Wesley Whitler is going to Northwestern to play quarterback. Like, okay, that I could totally see that. And Gavin Colson, we had the head coach Brian White on our Sports Hub program last week, head coach for Sully Buttes, and he was like, he is just such an even-keeled, cool customer. And it's like, well, yeah, because like he was a state finalist in golf back in the day. So anytime you shank one, he's just like, I'll get the next one. Like, I got this. So like, it's just interesting how you have 2 of the better players in Class B, or at least in this tournament anyway, and they're both playing college football. How interesting is that?
Yeah, and both of them could well go on and play college hoops as well, like you said.
Nate Malchow, I want to bring you in because I know you have relationships with some of the coaches in the B field. Do you have any insight in the coaching that will be in Walks Arena here for the State B?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a lot of familiar faces that are coming in. I mean, obviously there's a direct connection for Coach Rosh at Castlewood. Coach Jeff Tobin, who's our head coach at Washington High School, played high school basketball for Coach Rosh when he was at Langford. So just kind of neat to see some of those storylines that are coming through where you have the coaches who are making the trek back to Aberdeen, and you see a lot of familiar ones there too, that those communities really get up there and support Aberdeen, and they pack it in. And being an Aberdeen native too, I know how much that community appreciates the State Bees and how they get ready for that and prepares. And they're used to it because they do it each year. So there's a lot of Aberdeen Central personnel that goes over there and helps with the tournaments. So just a lot of familiar faces and a traditional event up in Aberdeen each March.
Well, let's run through and give our predictions for the quarterfinal games of the State B. I'm going to start with you, David. You have to do this. You're a sports talk radio host. You don't get a pass just because you're calling the games on radio. Who are you picking here?
I think I'm going through a tunnel. I'm losing you. Can you, Mom? What? My parents are actually in town. I guess I can't dodge. All right, I will go. This Lyman Viborg Hurley game is going to be really tough to pick, to be honest with you, because both teams are really good. And Lyman as an 8 seed, I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go with Viborg Hurley barely. Like barely. I think this is going to be a really, really good basketball game. So give me the Cougars barely. You know, for what it's worth, we talked with head coach Shane Warwick on our program here this last week, and he was totally sandbagging. Like, he's just totally sandbagging, in my opinion. He's like, yeah, you know, we're just happy to be here, this and that. And, like, we didn't really expect this. It's like, you were in the state championship last year. Like, you lost to Castlewood, who was really, really good. Like, what do you mean you're surprised and just happy to be here? So maybe he was, like, tamping it down a little bit just to, like, get his, like, not make it up, build it up too much for his kids, which I get, which I appreciate. But I will go with Viborg Hurley barely in game 1. Aberdeen Christian v. Castlewood. Oh, man. These are 2 local teams, so someone's going to hate me for this. So I'll take Castlewood. Oh, I'm going to go with Castlewood just barely. Same thing. Just another coin flip game. Sully Buttes versus Freeman's going to be close. Wesley Whitler, can they slow him down? Like, if Freeman can slow down Wesley Whitler and hold him to 20 or less, I like them. But if he gets over 30, give me Sully Buttes in a game like that. But if they slow him down, I'll take Freeman. And then DeSmit versus Wall. Like Coach Gruenhagen's team, they know state championship gold. They weren't in it last year because they got bounced by Castlewood, but they were going for, I think they had a three-peat, if memory serves correctly, here not that long ago. We talked about the OG ladies, like they converted their three-peat. So, yeah, I mean, DeSmit, they know. That's going to be a really good game. And Wall can shoot the lights out, though. Like, Wall's a team that can shoot really, really well. They didn't play very well in the first game last year, and then I thought played a very good second half and then third day. So completely contrasting styles there, but I'll take DeSmit in a slobber knocker, to quote Jim Ross. So that's going to be a really, really close game there too, but would not be shocked at all to see any of the teams that I predicted to win lose. I'm hedging right there, I suppose.
Going back to the first round game, if you're a longtime basketball fan in South Dakota, the 2 coaches, and Schleck mentioned this with Lyman and Viborg Hurley, Cooper Garnos at Lyman, Shane Warwick at Viborg Hurley. These guys' paths have crossed probably since the early 80s, back when they were playing possibly in high school, but I know in college, because Cooper played at Dakota Wesleyan and Warwick played for Northern State. So just those added storylines, 2 longtime figures in South Dakota basketball, tipping off at 11 a.m. to get the tournament going.
Ryan, I'm going to go to you. Give us your quick predictions on the finals.
I'll keep it quick, and my uneducated picks here is you guys may get a kick out of this, but Nate, I'm going to ask you, like, what's the over and under on how many different sets Warwick has for the first round? Like, how many sets are we going to run offensively, and how many counters to each set? I mean, you talk about going to the dentist office, right? Trying to defend that, unless he's changed. I just know. Yeah, I'm going to say Viborg Hurley, despite Coach Warwick's coaching, Viborg Hurley gets it done. Totally kidding with Shane there. And I do know just a little, Chow will appreciate this. You know, Cody Vollmer's son, Dawson Vollmer, I believe, is a junior for the Lyman Raiders. And so I think anyone that's listening to this podcast probably knows or has some Cody Vollmer stories. I was fortunate to play a few years with Cody at South Dakota State. And so I see posted some highlights of his son Duncan here in a few games. So that's pretty cool. But I'll take Viborg Hurley there. I'll take Castlewood over Christian. That's a toss-up. I'm just literally picking a team there. And I'm definitely go Sully Buttes over Freeman. And I think we got DeSmit and their size moving on in the second round as well.
Nate Kaeding, your turn.
Yeah, Viborg Hurley will be playing Castlewood in the semis. Freeman will be playing DeSmet in the semis. Castlewood will be playing DeSmet for the state title.
1st to 20 wins that game, maybe to 30.
Yeah, I like all your picks. You can't really go by seeds in Class B at all. And some of those regions were just loaded. I know the region with Castlewood and DeSmit had 2 or 3 other teams that could have easily made it.
Parkston was the second-ranked team. Parkston was the second-ranked team, and they didn't make it to the SODAC 16. Should we, open up that can of worms? Could that be a lot of fun? We could do that, if you want to. Like, you had a team that was ranked 31 in seed points, and they're in the SODAC 16. Meanwhile, the second-ranked team in seed points isn't there. That's kind of fun. You want to go there? You want to go there right now? Probably not.
I think that sounds like a great podcast for another day, David.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
yeah, I know that's a
Mhm.
hot topic in South Dakota, and I don't know what the right format is. All I know is this weekend, one of the best 3 days on the South Dakota basketball calendar. This has been one of our longer podcasts, maybe the longest one we've done since we launched, and there's a reason for that. This is a special weekend in South Dakota, and with the caliber of guests we had today with Nate and Brian and David, we can't thank you all enough for joining us and providing your expert analysis. And Nate Kaeding, in your case, calling 24 state tournament games in the span of 10 days. That's remarkable. I think you need to give whatever cough drops and lubricants you're using, you need to let David know, because he's going to call 12 games of the State B. And so we appreciate the coverage on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. We appreciate David and Fox Sports Radio. And Brian, you'll be out watching your arrows, and I can't wait to catch up with you out there and everything you do with Arrow TV now. But as we wrap up, and how can our viewers and listeners follow you all on social media, and kind of what are you looking forward to about the weekend? Nate Kaeding, you go first.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to follow me on social. That's number one, but it's at Nate Kaeding. I took it before the San Diego Chargers and a former Iowa kicker.
That's what I thought I was going to be talking
have
to. I was like, San Diego Chargers
have
kicker is going to be here. How cool is this?
the handle. I don't get bombed anymore on Twitter after he misses a kick to lose somebody $10,000 or anything like that. But yeah, at Nate Kaeding, I just think it's going to be a unique situation with both the A and AA out there, which I think is awesome. I recruited at a bunch of tournaments, Minnesota and Iowa and Nebraska, where all the classes are in one location. You know, I think it's special to have that. I would love if this state could figure out a way to make that happen, but I don't think we're anywhere near there.
David, how can people follow you and the Sports Hub? I know you can watch it. You put it on Facebook too, but let our viewers and fans know how they can follow your work. And if you can't be in Aberdeen, how can they listen? Is there a streaming option to follow you?
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to follow me on Twitter or X, whenever you want to call it, it's at David Tukesbrey, and that's no underscores or numbers or anything like that. And you can follow me there. You'll get a lot of Seahawks tweets come playoff time, which, by the way, world champs. Seattle Seahawks world champs. Just saying, big shout out. But yes, no, we have our daily sports talk show Monday through Friday between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. We're gonna have to figure that out a little bit with this week, with them moving the game times up an hour to see how that all works out. But Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Fox Sports Aberdeen. If you're outside the listening area, you can download the Hub City Radio app or the 605 Radio app. If you're somebody that has those Amazon Echo devices in your house or whatever, you can say, Alexa, enable Fox Sports Aberdeen. And I also do Northern State games as well. I do all the football games and the home volleyball matches, as well as the Northern State men's and women's basketball teams. So I'm the voice of the Wolves as well. I've got 2 daughters, busy dude, and I think we're having lasagna tonight here in the not too distant future. So I think pretty fired up for that. But yeah, at David Tukesbury and at Hub City Radio there too. This has been awesome. Like, you guys are all fantastic dudes to talk to, and like you said, we could probably do multiple hours about anything. So I just appreciate you guys reaching out to me, and all of us for that matter, to do this. This has been great.
And Brian, when you're not on a golf course or working, how can our viewers and listeners find you or follow your work?
I assume you meant, a different order, working, and then when I get the opportunity after work to play some golf on if I'm fortunate enough to, definitely priorities there. There's not a lot of reason other than I have some pretty good Costco tweets on my Twitter account.
Hey.
Following my wife into Costco and the adventures that entails. But I joke that on my bucket list is to be on a podcast. Well, now, guys, I checked off on my bucket list. And what a podcast to be on. What a podcast to be on. So I appreciate getting to hear all of your insights and the opportunity, and honored to be on the podcast. You guys do a great job. So this was really fun. You got Coach Roby retiring. You got Coach McClemens retiring. You got Coach Budenhagen still getting after it on the sidelines out there. Coach, I'm just mentioning some AA coaches I had the opportunity to coach against and coach with. But that's pretty special. I think everyone out there needs to stop Coach Roby and Coach McClemens and thank them for who they've been for kids and what they've done in their career, because they both can really be proud of what they've accomplished.
No question. And I think, Brian, that's a good way to sum things up right here. We have great leaders in this state, leading our girls this past weekend at the state tournaments, leading our boys this upcoming weekend. And I think these communities in the state are thankful for these leaders teaching these kids life lessons. And what an experience to get to a state tournament, to go to that. These are things kids, parents, communities will be talking about for the rest of their lives. Chance to highlight that and talk about that today. I would like to thank David, Nate, Brian for joining the podcast here. To our listeners, these are three of the best and three of the best people who have a passion for basketball. And we're certainly so happy to have them share their time with us. So thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
It's a great honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And that wraps up another episode of the State of Hoops podcast. Again, a special thank you to Nate Kaeding, Brian Norberg, and David Tukesbrey for joining us for this special episode. And if you are going to be in Rapid City at the State A or State AA boys tournament this weekend, if you see me, take time to say hi. We're always looking for good guest ideas and episode content. So I'll be out there watching the action, and I would encourage our viewers and listeners to introduce themselves to me if you're out there. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, and Amazon Music, and follow the podcast on X, Instagram, and YouTube. Until next time, this is your co-host, Todd Schlekeway, along with my fellow co-host, Nate Malchow. Have a great day.